What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Michael here and welcome back to another FudgeMuppet Fallout 4 build. Today's fortnightly installment is The Detective. A poster boy for justice, this Cal Lightman meets Sherlock Holmes type operator is a crusader for all that is right with a speckled past. Starting out as a typical hotshot rookie, you just can't help but fall into the detective's charms, and neither can anyone in the game. You'll be utilizing this build to its fullest potential throughout numerous storylines, with very large portions of the game's story leading you to feel like a real investigator. Accompanied by a Sith detective partner, your investigative skills will be put to the ultimate test as you track down your son, explore various factions to develop local connections, and of course travel to Far Harbor in order to solve its alluring mystery. A jack of most trades with a wide array of skills and some very noticeable standouts, the detective is a stable and greatly intelligent character, the type of person who aims to resolve things with his mind and strategy before violence. But make no mistake, this lad can and will throw down when the occasion calls for it. On the subject of combat, this build will not make much use of VATS, but feel free to dabble to your own liking. The detective will endeavor to serve the citizens of the Commonwealth as he hunts down criminals, takes on a few PI jobs on the side for money, and maintains the peace. Stay tuned to FudgeMuppet for more content like this, and feel free to wander about our channel and play every second video backwards to hear Tupac's secret message from beyond the grave. Follow us on Snapchat and Twitter to throw us a few questions, make us some offers if you're a Nigerian prince, or just look into that mysterious window of our personal lives. With that said, let's get into the backstory. Justice and law had always been paramount for the detective. Growing up, his father was a small-time criminal, constantly violating parole and coming in and out of state correctional. As a result, he experienced firsthand the effects of a forcefully broken family, with a single mother that struggled to make ends meet and the hanging, stigmatized shame of a community that knew what his father was. Like many children from broken families, his emotional intelligence would blossom very early on. There was little his mother could hide from him, whether it was body language or sugar-coated lies to spare the young lad from the dire, gritty details of the situation. His father danced too close to the devil as an unpaid loan resulted in his untimely death. The detective vowed to never walk on the darker path, helping people where he could, giving back to the community, something that would come into play with his policing style, and dedicating himself to his studies in the hope of saving his mother from all the financial stress. It was as if he was setting out to prove he wasn't his father. Due to his mother's low income, there were few recreational activities the detective could afford to participate in with the other children. Consequently, he would spend a lot of time in the library and also entertaining himself with puzzles wherever he could find them. Regardless of socioeconomic barriers, he had never faced any trouble relating to and befriending people. The majority of the detective's upbringing would revolve around challenging himself by choice and necessity. After high school, he enrolled in the Boston Police Academy, excelling in all aspects as usual. Upon graduation, the detective joined the Massachusetts State Police as a trooper. His past regarding his father would occasionally haunt him through the treatment he received from his superiors. Initially working the beat, he was promoted to Trooper First Class after 5 years of service. It was in these 5 years he fostered local connections quite intensely, taking the community-based approach to policing. When the war began to intensify, he enlisted to serve his country commendably like the homegrown All-American he was. When he returned after decent success, the detective resumed his shining career, making a name for himself as a stellar, more importantly clean, officer of the law. This unwillingness to be corrupted while simultaneously turning a blind eye to those who were in the department bred suspicion amongst some of his colleagues. His flawless work ethic was also a trait that often rubbed his jealous peers the wrong way despite his good nature. Years go by and he ascends to the ranks of sergeant and lieutenant, unsurprisingly blitzing the promotion exams. When the position of detective finally presented itself to him, the detective sadly hit a wall. The entrance exam results were not an issue, nor was his career history, secretly motivated by the fear that their own corrupt dealings would come to light if he were to join their ranks. Administrative figures who were aware of his father's criminality cut his ambitions short. Devastated and unaware of the truth behind the denial of promotion, the detective decided that he was not going to let this prevent him from being the best officer of the law that he could be, continuing to protect and serve. That said, he knew he was qualified to be a detective and would conduct himself like one during his policing when possible. If clues could solve a problem, he was onto it. Eventually, he met an assistant district attorney who he naturally fell in love with. They got married, settled down and had a child, and they lived happily ever after. Until of course the bombs fall and life is changed forever. Leaving the vault, the detective is determined to track down his son. With none of his department-issued equipment, state resources, or legal authority, he is stripped back and forced to rely on his base skills. This does come with a silver lining, as with no formalized organization or hierarchy to prevent him from doing so, he assumes the role of detective. Early game, he will encounter the Minutemen and collaborate with them. His relationship with various factions and communities will be key. Along the way, he meets Nick Valentine, a fellow detective in Diamond City, and the two soon become close friends. Nick will remain by his side throughout all his cases, aiding him in the search for his son. Shortly after, he discovers the Railroad and will pretty much side with them. The Railroad are pro-synth, and as Nick is a synth, it's only appropriate that they work with that faction. The detective's work with the Minutemen will continue, but will become a secondary concern. When he finally uncovers the fate of his son, the detective is devastated. In the end, however, he is simply relieved that the case can be put to rest, despite what he finds. Soon after, he ventures to Far Harbor with Nick in order to resolve the mystery there. For an immersive experience, treat every quest as a case to be solved. Another important thing to remember with the detective is to roleplay his good-natured character, so be sure to help those when you can and fight against all wrongdoings. With the start game special stats, you'll want to have 2 strength, 3 perception, 5 endurance, 10 charisma, 6 intelligence, 1 agility, and 1 luck. The special book in Sanctuary will be used on endurance, making it 6. The perception bobblehead will also be found very early on in the game, and that brings the stat up to a 4, giving the detective access to Locksmith. Obviously, 10 charisma shows the charm of the build, but it also represents the ability of the detective to read body language and react appropriately. He'll be able to persuade people in dialogue to find out information which would otherwise be held back, and as a detective, this is crucial. It will also help you make a lot of caps, obviously. 6 intelligence conveys the wit of the detective and will help you level at a solid pace while having access to useful perks such as Gun Nut. All the other stat choices have mainly occurred due to a lack of points to spend, and also because of the perks we're using, which will all be explained next. If you want to rationalize why this build has low strength and agility, it can be because the Vault technology messed with him physically. Now let's build this build. So starting out, this build will be getting the Intimidation perk. This gives you the chance to pacify a human opponent by aiming your gun at them, and this fits in well with the past skills of this build. Your targets do need to be below your level though. We then get Gunslinger to cause 20% more pistol damage, and obviously, like any detective build, pistols are the main weapon choice of this character. Following this, we get the Locksmith perk to start picking our way into advanced locks, and we want to get this early on so we can get the most use out of it. At level 5, the detective will pick up the first rank of Wasteland Whisperer. This works just like Intimidation, however it affects Wasteland creatures, not humans. We're only getting the first rank of this, but we'll get all the ranks of Intimidation eventually. Next, we get the first rank of Animal Friend, and again, we're only getting the first rank. This will let us pacify animals. Following this, the detective will be getting the second rank of Gunslinger. This will make pistols do 40% more damage and have increased range. Obviously, increased gun damage as soon as possible is going to be handy for this build, as he doesn't have any stats which increase his damage like melee characters do with strength. The next rank of Locksmith is then picked so the detective can find his way through expert level locks. We're not getting the hacker perk as Nick Valentine will be doing the hacking. After this, the detective picks up the first rank of Gun Nut to make his pistols more powerful, and then at level 10 he gets the first rank of Medic for a bit more survivability. This makes Stimpaks restore 40% of your max HP, and right away will remove 40% of your max potential radiation. This is really helpful for Far Harbor, and we're getting the rad resistant perk as well, so we don't have to ever wear a disgusting hazmat suit. At level 11 and 12, this build picks up some charm points with 2 ranks of Lady Killer in a row. This makes women suffer 10% more damage in combat, but more importantly, it makes persuading them in dialogue much easier. It also makes them easier to pacify with the Intimidation perk. At level 13, we're going to be getting the second rank of Gun Nut, and then at level 14, we're actually getting Aqua Boy. Now you'll no longer take radiation damage from swimming, and you can also breathe underwater. This will be very helpful for getting around your environment quicker, especially in Far Harbor where there's plenty of irradiated water. We won't be getting the second rank as this build doesn't use stealth and doesn't need it. Gunslinger 3 is then chosen to cause 60% more pistol damage and to increase pistol range even further, and then the detective finishes off the Lady Killer perk completely. This final rank means that women will take 15% more damage and are even easier to persuade in dialogue. They're also even easier to pacify than ever before with Intimidation. At level 17, we get Inspirational, which makes companions unable to hurt you and also cause more damage, and this is perfect as we're using a companion, Nick Valentine, as much as possible. After this, Locksmith 3 is collected to give us access to Master Locks, and then at level 19 we're getting Inspirational 2. Now our companion Nick resists more damage in combat and can't be harmed by our own attacks. Finally, at level 20, the detective will be investing in armor so he can start using ballistic weave on his trench coat, and you'll get this by working with the railroad. At level 21, armor is picked again for the same reason, and then we actually invest into the intelligence stat at level 22. This will help us level faster, which is great for this build and also fits in with role-playing someone who is constantly gaining more knowledge and mental ability. We're then getting the second rank of Intimidation, and this will allow the detective to incite people to attack once they've been successfully pacified, of course. After this, a perk point is placed into the Intelligence stat for the same reasons mentioned just before, and then at level 25 we're going with Armor 3. Again, this is purely for ballistic weave. We want to be as fortified as possible while still looking like a badass investigator. Next, we increase the use of our pistol with Gun Nut 3, and then we increase its damage with Gunslinger 4. Now pistols will do 80% more damage, and their attacks can disarm opponents. At level 28, Intelligence is picked once more for that useful leveling speed, and then over the next 3 levels, we're going with Rad Resistant. That's levels 29, 30, and 31. With 3 ranks of this, the detective will have plus 30 radiation resistance, and again, this will allow you to stay in your outfit comfortably without having to put on that aesthetic breaking hazmat suit ever. Following Rad Resistant, we're getting 2 ranks of Cap Collector. Now buying and selling prices will be a lot better. This is followed by 2 ranks of Local Leader. And now you can establish supply lines between workshop settlements, and you'll be able to build stores and workstations at these settlements. We'll talk more about what we're doing with settlements and why this is useful in the settlement section later on towards the end of the video. At levels 36 and 37, we're getting Scrapper, and this will help with settlement building a lot. It'll let you salvage uncommon and rare components for building, and also lets you favorite components to highlight in the wasteland, making them easier to find. We then pick one of the new perk ranks Far Harbor added, and that is the 4th rank of Rad Resistant. And now the detective will have plus 40 Rad Resistance. At level 39, we max out the Gun Nut perk, obviously to max out our pistol, and perhaps the weapon of Nick Valentine, and then at level 40, we max out armor. Now you can complete your ballistic weave upgrades. The final rank of Cap Collector is next on the list, and this will allow the detective to invest a total of 500 caps to raise a store's buying capacity. We'll then finish off Gunslinger with the 5th rank, making pistols do double damage, and also have a much better chance to disarm opponents. Their bullets may also cripple a limb. Next is another Far Harbor perk rank, Scrapper 3. This basically just lets you salvage more components, which is obviously useful for this build in the settlement building stages. At levels 44 and 45, we double dip in Medic, getting rank 2 and 3, and this will allow the detective to heal 80% of his health back with a stim pack and remove 80% of that max potential radiation with Radaway. Obviously, it goes without saying why this is so great, and it'll definitely be useful in the later stages of your playthrough. At level 46, we get Locksmith 4, so we can just carry around 1 lockpick that will never break, and then we're actually going to beef up further with 3 perk points placed into Endurance over the next 3 levels. This is also a lot more helpful later on in the game, as it will impact your total health a lot more. Finally, at level 50, we get Intimidation 3, allowing us to issue commands to our pacified human targets. This is a really fun part of the playstyle, especially considering the backstory of the build. Not including gear, the detective should end up with 3 strength, 4 perception, 10 endurance, 11 charisma, 10 intelligence, 2 agility, and 2 luck. With gear, his perception will actually be 7. Remember that these endgame stats include all the bobbleheads, so be sure to get them all. You will also need the strength bobblehead before you get access to the armor perk. The aesthetics of this build will be a callback to many iconic hard-boiled detectives, the stoic Pulp Fiction covers, and the noir style that has inspired many today. Think Jack Nicholson in Chinatown or Brad Pitt in Seven, and if those mean nothing to you, be sure to Google them. Moving on. To begin with, wear whatever you can find that takes to your liking. Heading straight for Nick Valentine's quest and going through that whole affair, you will receive the faded trench coat, which is a staple to all great detectives in the 40s. Perhaps you'll even find yourself wanting to search for some sunglasses to wear to complete the whole Chinatown PI look. Bonus internet points for slapping a bandage or bruise over your nose. Be sure to ballistic weave the trench coat for high resistances. Similar to the apparel, your gun will be any and all pistols you can get your hands on until you acquire a 44 Magnum, yet another detective staple. Upgrade it to ensure the most damage possible, and as time goes by, be sure to use a Magnum with whatever legendary variant you prefer. You could go with Kellogg's pistol, the Gainer, or any random legendary 44 drop. When it all comes down to it, this is really all about the look and the feel of a handgun-wielding detective. As said earlier, we recommend a strict avoidance of the hazmat suit as it conflicts with your style, but fear not, you will have the rad-resistant perk of course. As mentioned before, your companion will be Nick Valentine, who will be by your side at all times. Nick will be able to hack into various things for you, while you'll be responsible for all the lockpicking when the time comes for serious snooping. Your high charisma will allow you to pass his dialogue checks easily, which always helps. Nick's backstory and companion dialogue made him the obvious choice for this build, complementing your own story and fitting in seamlessly with the character. Also, as mentioned earlier, you will venture to Far Harbor together to uncover what's going on there, and you'll also be able to explore a bit of Nick's past, which is definitely a lot of fun. Recognizing that there are no longer any widespread law enforcement agencies, the detective will seek to remedy this by forming his own informal organizations. He will wander about establishing local area command centers and precincts here and there. This is all very much an endgame objective, so don't stress out too much if you haven't found time to form anything early on. Each place will have their own settlers and shops to help with utility, and of course, what's a command center without an office? So feel free to build offices within all of them. With your innately high charisma, the shops you have will help supplement your income, and that's obviously useful for building your settlements up. Trade routes will also exist in between each established settlement to share resources. It's also crucial for role-playing that you build a network of intelligence gathering in people, places, and objects. Have a decent emphasis on community and people for full effectiveness. Remember the fundamental basis of good police work, and by extension, good investigative work, is a wealth of solid information. And that concludes another FudgeMuppet Fallout 4 build. Tune in the week after next for another fresh role-playing experience. Throw us a like if you thought we did alright this time, and share if you thought we fucking nailed it, and hell, subscribe to us if you think Donald Trump is a tangerine. In any case, check in with us between now and 2 weeks for some other fun content, maybe even a cheeky skit if you're good, and follow us on social media to make sure we're still law-abiding citizens. We need to have an eye kept on us. As always, I'm Michael, and I'll see you next time.